I wouldn't say I chase everything, but I chase a lot of things. You have to be so passionate about what it is that even you don't have all the answers now, you will solve them as you go. There's gonna be all the ebbs and flows and tough parts of business. I do believe we're gonna be very successful. We're hyper-focused now. I can say no to anything pretty quickly.
Welcome to the Masters of Business podcast with Daniel Beer.
My youngest wanted to go watch Imagine Dragons, so I took him there. And,
That's awesome.
We went to the Blue Man Group. We went to Mystere. We went to Piff the Magic Dragon, some magic show. We went to the Sphere. They do the Sphere experience there. It was awesome. A lot of fun.
Good for you. Sounds like a good time. I love it.
What'd you do?
I was in Hawaii. We just sold our property there. So it's kind of our last week. We've been there kind of the last 4 winters. So it was our last 7 days kick of the cat. I was kind of still getting over like a flu. So it kind of hit me before Christmas. It was a bit of a bummer around that. But outside of that, we played golf, they have a big New Year's party. It's super fun. They do the fireworks at 10 o'clock, which is great because I don't have to stay up that late. And kids saw their friends, did our thing, signed off, and we closed in a couple weeks. So excited to, sad to move on from it. It's a pretty special place, but on the flip side, ready for the next chapter in San Diego, as you know, which would be pretty cool.
And is that property in Hawaii, did you find that within your business? Is that part of?
Little different. So just on the personal side, on the business side, we have like our vacation property side, but we joined a private club there. We've been in kind of a couple different private clubs that are all kind of full master plan. Have we talked about this Discovery Land Company? Can't remember we chatted about that when we were. So you know Discovery Land Co.
No.
Okay, well we'll Google them. You definitely want to know about them, but they've got 2 clubs in Palm Springs. That'd be the only ones in California. Like Madison Club and Hideaway Club there, but they basically are, they're the best club operator in the world by a long shot. So if you go to their website, it's like, I know we're recording, but like, I would say real estate forum, but it's like, it is like the coolest setup, and it's really a spot for really rich people, much richer than they're a different level than I'm at for sure. But we got into a club in one of their clubs in northern Idaho in Gaza Ranch, Lake Coeur d'Alene about 10 years ago. And then it's kind of been following them around. This club used to be part of that parent company, but now it changed hands. But just really great setup, super family friendly, adult friendly, very low density, very highly amenitized, and they're incredible. So from a real estate guy, one to another, you'll definitely want to follow along, because one day I'm sure you're going to want to buy one of them somewhere. And because once you put your kids there, like you can never go back. And they got like candy stations all around the property for like kids and the open bars, and it's a whole thing. It's pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool. So we had our last week there, and that was super fun. And so non-rentable, it's obviously all private spot, but we had just lots of great friendships and community we built there over the years. And but we're looking to build a new community in Southern California.
So, and are you in Vancouver right now?
I Edmonton right now. Yeah, but we get down in a few weeks.
Edmonton's where you live.
Edmonton, Alberta is home base. Yeah. Well, formally. In 3 weeks, it'll be a change, but that's where I'm born and raised here.
You'll be in Santa Luz.
Pardon me?
You'll be in Santa Luz, right?
Yeah, Santa Luz will be the new spot.
Cool. Yeah, it's, I don't know, 7 minutes from here.
Minutes from you. I remember you showed how close your place was. It's crazy.
So, all right, then from a business standpoint, as we jump in here, give me, what's the name? Because I know you do a couple different things. What's the name of your company?
So the main called parent company is the Luxus Group, and Luxus is the Latin word for luxury. So we started in 2007, not knowing, of course, what it would ultimately entail, but it was just around like, luxury vacation rentals, kind of in a private club format. That's how it kicked off. Now it's got multiple different divisions, the ground up development space, Italian restoration business, and then the luxury rental portfolio. So underneath the Luxus Group, there's Luxus Vacation Property, Luxus Development, Luxus Restoration. So there's like, kind of sub-entities underneath it now. And, but the whole concept is really, and luxury is a relative word. We've got stuff that's $1 million and stuff that's $30 million and everything in between that we build for buyers and everything else. But it's been cool. It's been quite the ride for sure, but that would be the company name.
Okay. Awesome. And how many, so how big, like with all those sub entities, how many people work in your whole ecosystem now?
Well, we've on true, like on the payroll, we'd have in the 3 offices, 35 probably FTEs. But then we've got dozens and dozens more of like contracted people that are part-time to full-time, depending upon people on the ground that service the properties, not just like vendors, but like people that are either semi-exclusive or exclusive with Luxus, but not on the payroll. So maybe it's 50 to 60 probably in the bigger scope of things, but somewhere in that range.
So let's just dive in then. When you founded this, like, what's the opportunity that you saw? What was the gap in the marketplace, or how did you even end up building this? And what is the business model exactly when you say that it's a luxury vacation group?
Okay, sure. So is this for the podcast recording, or is this like the pre-chat?
Oh, we're on, man.
Well, let's go, baby. All right.
Yeah,
Well, people are already hearing this stuff. I love it. Right on. Okay, I'll give it the quick why we started. It's easy to remember for me because it was all tied to my wife was pregnant in 06. And she was a journalist, a news anchor. I was in a totally different industry, in the grocery business, as a matter of fact. And we love to travel. And that's a big part of, obviously, our family's journey, our courtship, call it, as for Carrie and I. Our first baby coming along, I say all of our friends, I'm generalizing, but they're like, oh, travel's going to suck once you have a baby. You can't bring him anywhere, and it's a pain in the butt. And we just said, man, we got to find a way to travel because we love traveling and we want our kids exposed to, different parts of the world and different things. And the problem with traveling with the baby is that, like, what are your options at the time? So it's either a hotel, which is just no fun. Takes the romance out of the whole thing, and you're eating meals out 3 times a day, and it's not much fun. There was Airbnb didn't exist yet. It was VRBO was the only player. And back then it still is not great, but it was really bad back then in terms of consistency. You never know what you're going to get. And as a new parents, you're always like hypersensitive to like a clean place, and you have all the things you need to take care of your child in the kitchen or whatever it might be. So we couldn't really go with like the lack of certainty that provided. And the third option was owning our own property, which sounded nice. But we didn't have any money, so it wasn't really an option to make a $500,000 $1 million investment in a second home. But the problem that happened, even if we did have the money, was we wanted variety. So we wanted to go to multiple spots. So long story long is we said, well, wouldn't it be amazing if you had hotel-like certainty and concierge experience, you had variety of lots of options to go to, and you also had these great luxury properties, like really nice homes. You had equity in those homes. And so we thought, well, what if we just brought together a group of friends and let's go buy a few homes together. We'll be the manager of these properties. And we'll get a beach home, we'll get a desert home, and we'll get a ski summer home. Then we kind of check our variety box. We get the certainty and consistency that comes with it. And we get the size of home that we want. And we want to bring friends or family members, or we're not putting, babies in closets or anything like that. Yeah. Everyone's got their own room and their own space.
You could put the baby in the closet, though.
What's that?
You could put them in the closet.
Well, I've done many times. It's like it's a big walk-in closet. It's got to have lots of airflow. That's don't want to be. I've
had the bathroom be the kid's bedroom.
Bathroom's a good spot. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Back in play days.
So anything to have outside of the master. But at the end of the day, we launched this thing, got these 3 homes, and then it just kind of snowballed. Those 18 friends and family that invested a couple $100,000 each, got started a fund. So instead of syndicating individual home, we started a limited partnership, or basically a fund. And they told their friends, and all of a sudden started to grow and create some momentum. And we ended up raising, or fast forward 7-8 years, we ended up raising close to $100 million and bought 50 properties around North America and a little bit in Europe and Costa Rica, Latin America, Caribbean, stuff like that. So now we had this really large portfolio of homes that we were managing, and they were all LPs, so they're all part of the group. And we had all the homes were average between $800,000 to $5 million, and everything kind of in between. And this was like our travel portfolio for, call it phase 1 of Luxus.
Hold on a moment. I missed it then. If we back up, you're trying to figure out how to solve for these pain points that you discussed, particularly the variety and all that.
Biggest thing I would say is certainty. I don't like not knowing what I'm going to get on the other side, and I don't want to stay in a hotel with a family.
So you want to make sure that you have a great property that you're going to stay at, but that you have a variety of them.
Correct.
And how do you do it without money?
How do you do it without money? Exactly. Yes.
So you are in that spot without money. The move you made was to. This is what I might have missed. You reached out then to people you knew who maybe had a few bucks.
Friends and family. Exactly.
And you said what?
I said, hey, I've got this idea. I want to buy 3 homes. I want to raise $3.5 million, million two each. And if you buy into this fund, you're going to get a couple months worth of time that you can change. You can do a few weeks in Hawaii and a few weeks in the summer and a few weeks there. We're going to manage it. It's going to make it really easy for you. So just like a private club, we'll take care of all the bills and all the expenses, and we'll just assess you every year what the expenses are for managers. You have to worry about anything. All you're going to do is go to a calendar, which didn't exist at the time. It was a paper calendar, obviously turned into like $1 million.
What year are we talking about?
What's that?
What year are we talking about?
2007.
Okay.
And I was honestly like still humbled thinking about it 17, 18 years now in the past. Thinking back is like these people like literally writing me personal checks. We didn't have a company set up yet. They're like, Steve, I'm in. I want to have this type of experience. It's the same problem I have for my family, and I would love to be a part of it. And all of a sudden we had $3.5 million, and we had to set up a company and then a structure and hire an employee, and all of a sudden it's turned into a business. And then
so wait, you're what made these people say yes? It's easy to say yes to you now. I mean, you're accomplished, you're legit, you're known, you have this great what made people say yes to 2007 version of you?
I have no idea. I don't know. That's very
What were you doing
convincing.
before? What's your background? Like,
I honestly, I was an entrepreneur my whole life. So I was in the grocery business, which is a part of my parents' business at the time. Really had no real estate experience outside of what my family had done personally, going to home in Phoenix or whatever. But I just became like deeply, deeply passionate and obsessed with it. And if you break it down to the simplest form, it's like 5 people buying a home together, which happens all the time, and then people split our four ways or whatever the case is. We just took that model, just made it a little bit bigger. So it's something that people want. People want equity in real estate, but they necessarily don't want all of the equity because they want all the time. They don't want the hassle of managing the real estate. So it's like everyone had their own pain point. I'd love to invest with you because I really want to go to Hawaii more often, but I can't spend $1 million myself right now. So $250,000 sounds like a more reasonable number because I only want to go 3-4 weeks a year. And so everyone had that similar pain point to what my wife and I had. And as a result, they're like, this is very interesting. And they're thinking, okay, well, what's the downside? Stephen, he may be a good human being, nice person, but what's the downside? The thing fails, and we as a collective of 18 people own 3 properties. We go sell those 3 properties and we get our capital back. So there wasn't really like a financial downside. We were saying we're going to build this portfolio. We're going to have a concierge team, asset management team. And they're like, sure, we'll see. But all we knew we could commit to is $3.5 million and 3 properties.
So there was no debt on these properties.
Correct. We bought
everything cash. You get X amount of people. How many people were in the original contributors?
Yeah, 18 founders.
18.
Me and my wife were one, my parents
no
one, and 16 friends.
16 friends to commit to say yes. So I just want to highlight, right? For everybody listening, is you went and asked for what I'm hearing is you asked for what most people wouldn't dare to ask for. Because the part you left out is, and not only should you guys buy these properties, but I think I'll be using them too. And you'll pay me to manage them.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. And I do put one point in here, made one point, Kate, that we were one of the shares. So we did put in $150,000 of real money as one of the shares. Where the first money in, just so they knew we were shoulder to shoulder at the LP level, but we were the manager. Like we were also in charge of it. We're going to charge fees. We're going to charge fees up front, and we're going to charge fees for the daily management. We're going to get a cut of the appreciation. So we had a whole fee model structured around it.
At this time, were you imagining this was going to be like a side thing you do or the thing?
It was definitely, I would say in year 1 was a side thing. Like for sure it's 06, 07 was a side thing. When it became real is when we got these first 18 people, and very, very quickly it grew to like 60 people. And so in 2011, we actually sold and exited the other business and then went full in on Luxus, or we as me and my wife, growing out this business. Obviously it's got lots of iterations, which we'll cover later. But then we really focused on that business for a period of time, went full time and just got after it.
What a great story though. And so many just lessons, right? To go and ask for something. Obviously, like, it probably won't even have the time to dig into it the right way, but for these 16 people to say yes, it also implies how you'd lived your life previously, how you'd shown up, how you'd honored your word, how you'd shown some level of consistency in whatever else you were doing. I mean,
correct.
They made a pretty good bet on you, granted backed by real estate. And then, the Great Recession comes right around the corner. but
Yes.
I suppose it just doesn't affect you because you have no debt.
We had a very,
Or how did
that's
everyone
very, very
react to
good
that?
point.
Because it could be that they needed, even though you had no debt, people were still getting hurt in other areas, and they might have. So did that impact you?
Well, it's a great point. We got this. So within the industry, there was probably like 50 players at the time, and we were the number 50. We're the smallest. And because we're just this like local startup, no one even paid attention. They all thought we were crazy because we actually gave people equity. Most of them were like phantom equity and club memberships. And then they don't share the books. So people were buying in because these guys had this perceived momentum of adding homes, where they were leasing homes, having them 80% lever. 2008 hits, end of 2008, our business did stop. And for 1 year, 14 months, we only sold 4 additional shares in that time, 4 spots. And we were debating whether we wind this up. The good news is it's debt free and people paid the bills. It wasn't making any money, but it wasn't losing money either. So it was just like a golf club. It just kind of like plugging along. But what happened, the industry shrunk from like 50 to like 10 players almost overnight in the course of a year. And people are losing 100% of their capital, not realizing that they didn't invest in an equity thing. And then me and a few other players that also started off at the same time, we all become very good friends because we managed our way through, because you have no debt. And that's how you can survive the tougher. I'm not saying no debt's right in every scenario. We have plenty of debt in our development world and everything else. But in this particular business model, that no debt saved us 100%. And then because we came out of it as, oh, this equity model is actually the way to go. It was was March 2010. So we had this 1.5-year gap from early 2019. And then it was like crazy for 5 years. Like we could not buy properties fast enough. We had to put people on waiting lists to give us their money before we bought a property because we had no place to place the capital. It was just a wild 5 years. And that's when like people were, I don't want to say legitimate, but we actually now had an office and we had a team. We had people doing things. It wasn't Stephen coffee shops trying to sell people the dream. There was actually a business behind it. And that's when we left the other business and went full time into this side. And then we kind of had a wild ride from the big thing we had that was good for us was the Alberta economy was still strong due to the oil and gas side. So capital is a bit more fluid and real estate was on sale around the world. So we also got people that are more interested in investing, even though they're still using it for a lifestyle perspective. They still want the usage. They recognize it as a good time to buy real estate. And guys that couldn't afford to buy their own personal home for $1 million, this was a great way to syndicate and put in $200,000 or $300,000 in a like diversified portfolio.
To that point, it's like every time I buy an investment property, the thing that definitely strikes me is, we torture ourselves over, well, is the return on this one 10% cash on cash, or is it 12, or is it 8, or gosh, it's only 4 or 5. But at the end of the day, whether it's 10 or whether it's 5 or whether it's 7, it doesn't really change too much. Like it doesn't change it doesn't change any of the quality of my life, to be frank.
Yes,
whether it's 10
exactly,
or 6 or 7 or 8 or this or that. No, we're just buying I've my whole life just been buying normal kind of just investment property or university rentals, and it's good. It builds over time. But the thing that's definitely become clear to me, I'm curious as we kind of go deeper here, because there's a lot of talk about just how challenging the short-term rental market has become with saturation in certain areas. So just curious about your outlook there.
Yeah, of course.
But certainly if I owned a ski home that paid me 4% cash on cash, my life is way better than if I have a random rental in a random part of San Diego or anywhere else in the country that pays me 10%.
Yes.
My life is genuinely improved from a quality of life perspective, enjoyment perspective on that, 3-4% return, but I have a ski home versus, hey, I get an extra, $190 a month.
Yeah, out of the student housing complex or something like that. It's you nailed it. You'd be the perfect guy I would have went to in 2007 if we were buddies back then, because that's exactly what people would say back to me. It's like, at least I can use it. And there's a real material, financial, and lifestyle value around using something that's awesome. And that's where I think we got the momentum, because that kind of started the precipice of everything with Luxus. Everything we've done has some lifestyle component to it, whether it's an investment with us in one of our projects or it's a usage component. There's some fun component about the things that we do. And I'm not saying that every project, every industry, whether it's within real estate, multifamily, student housing, industrial, they all have their own returns, their own things, but you're not going to go like camp in the industrial park for fun on a weekend with your family. But it's cool. We have a whole team in Italy that does restoration projects in central Tuscany. And even our investors in the projects, they get a story to tell their friends, their advisor, to be like, I'm invested in a 500-year-old ruin in Tuscany. And people say, you're crazy. And then they find out that's what we do for a living. So they get a return. Return may be driven by capital appreciation, maybe driven by cash flow, but it's always driven by some lifestyle perk that comes along with it. And that's kind of been like our niche that we've been successful at over the years. And we've turned down everything and probably some really good money-making opportunities that are purely based on just financial return because they have to have a lifestyle component to it.
So what's the difference between like, I think one that's, a lot of people know about there, Inspirato comes to mind.
Yep.
What's the difference in structure fundamentally?
Yeah, you bet. So Inspirato, we know them well. When we started our development business, so if I were to quickly summarize in 60 seconds or less, first 7 years was that. Next 7 years, we had that business existing. It was operating. Then the next 7 years was starting our development business. Now we're in kind of iteration 3 that the development business is going to a whole different kind of trajectory. And we're actually exited the version 1.0 to get into the rental business. So just to kind of like summarize where we are in the iteration of Luxus, businesses ebb and flow and our niches evolve a little bit over time. The principles are still the same, but it's just a little bit bigger and different.
And it doesn't have to be about them, but just like differentiation to competitors. What is that?
Yeah, no, but they're a perfect competitor to talk about as an example. So what happened post 2010 was the industry collapsed and started to rebuild itself. People came out with different models. So a lot of these equity models came into play. We were the largest in North America at the time. Now that we've exited, it's one of my good friends has the largest one based out of Atlanta. And Inspirato launched. And so what they did instead is they took this hybrid model. Okay, people want consistency and certainty, that brand standard, but they can't write big $200,000, $300,000 checks. So they created a club model. So no equity. Inspirato doesn't own anything, but they do this lease arbitrage play. So we already still have a property with Inspirato under one of our groups, one of our clients that Inspirato manages, and they've done multiple properties with us. We haven't done work with them in a while. We did a lot of work with them kind of that 5-year stretch. So what they would do is they'll go lease it from Daniel. It will say, I'm going to give you $200,000 a year for your house. I'm going to give you 4 weeks of utilization. So they're leveraging other people's capital and other people's properties. And then they arbitrage it by renting it to their club members that pay $25,000 to get in at a nightly rental rate. And hopefully they rent it for more than $200,000 and they keep the delta. So that's like another version. And without going down the rabbit hole, there's 20 different hybrid variations within the club industry.
But in that model, if the Great Recession comes around again, version 2, hopefully not. And if that were to come around again, the owners, like they can't do what you guys, you didn't end up doing it. You didn't have to do it, but your worst case scenario is we can sell the asset. We don't have any debt on it. We can get all of our capital back or some of our capital back.
Exactly.
In the Inspirato model, if that went out of business, you're just simply out. You're just out.
Basically, yeah. So when the COVID hit, as an example, they have all sorts of force majeure, different clauses they can exit their contracts. So really, what ends up happening if you're someone, and Inspirato, unfortunately, as most models in our industry are really really struggling. Inspirato is one of them now, and I'm not certain of what their future is going to be. They'll still probably be a business. They just never have had 3 different CEOs in 9 months, and they've really just had a tough go at it because the arbitrage play in their particular model is tough to make sure that delta. If a recession comes and people start spending less on their travel, they're going to be making less than the lease rates. Thereby they can't afford it, and thereby they could go under, or they have to cancel these leases with the homeowners, at which point the homeowner owns their real estate and they can go live in it, or they can go rent it out through a company like us or whatever. But no one's been able to find a scalable model in the club world. The only one is Exclusive Resorts because it's owned by Steve Case, who's a billionaire. And he's the only one that's been able to carry it because he's very wealthy and can afford to carry it. No one else has figured out the true financial model. Inspirato, Picasso, Sonder does the play. Like they've all really struggled. And it's bad for the industry. I don't want to see it. I wish these guys would find success. But they had a tough time really making that fly within the industry. It's kind of one of the reasons we exited that part of the business. It is a harder business to make money at, and it's why we pivoted to kind of a new parallel.
So, through all that, I'd love to dive in a little bit through the pitch you made to your friends to this day, to seeing all these differences in business model. And I'm sure steps you might have taken differently yourself, doing it all over again. What are some of those things that you do different today? If you were starting all over again today, knowing what you know now,
Yeah.
what comes to mind that perhaps somebody listening doesn't have to repeat the same mistake if they heed your advice?
Sure. No, I appreciate it. It's I think if I'd say what I would do again first, which will go into what some of the things that change is you have to be so passionate about what it is that even you don't have all the answers now, you will solve them as you go. And I think it's especially if you're raising capital, and friends and family might be low hanging fruit, but there's lots of places people could put money. So it's like I may not be a subject matter expert now, but I will be the smartest guy in this industry, and just give me I'll compress time, become very smart, and do very well by this. But they see the passion and they know that like you're truly in it. People want to support you. Like that brings a lot of good energy. Like they call it founder's passion for a reason. And I think founder's passion is worth 3 to 5 times any salesperson because you can just deliver that extra energy. If I were to start over, I would have thought, I want to say Wild West, but I was like, I really didn't understand how it was going to be profitable. I had this vision of it, but I probably could have spent more time earlier stage to understand and make sure I created the correct fee structure for the model. Because these are 10-year funds. So if you mess it up on day one in your offering memorandum or PPM, you've got to now ride it out for 9 years up with whatever that mistake was. And we kept changing the model slightly, and we never really kind of cracked the perfect code. And as a result of that, I really never made much profit off it. We had a few years there during that one stint that it was pretty good. But when I look at the 15-year life of that cycle of that entire fund and those funds, it really was, I'm not going to say money lost because there's so much education and maybe credibility in the industry, other things that added value for this next chapter we're on. But that particular business did not make any money. And it's not because the people weren't willing to pay it. It's because I structured it incorrectly from the beginning. And as a result, I couldn't go back and amend it. I could go ask everyone, hey, I feel like I'm feeling poor. Can you pay me more? But it's not something you can kind of go back to partners and renege on halfway through a fund. So if you're doing something that has a longer life to it, if it's, more than a 2 or 3 year life, it's like, I would have really probably spent an extra, I don't know, 500 hours, like diagnosing and understanding, how do I make sure this fee model protects me? Then when we do it at a certain scale, I expect to make money in day one. It's a business that has to grow over time. If we do it at a certain scale, and we were at roughly 100 million real estate, we should have been making really good money, and we weren't. And that's my mistake in the early stages of not properly structuring the fee model that compensates our time accordingly to what we're providing. So I think a lot of people rush into businesses because they like the idea of it. And I mentor a lot of guys, I'm sure you do as well, guys and gals, and they're rushing into a passion play. But when you really tell them to understand, well, how is this making you money in year 3? They don't quite understand. And so I challenge them because I went through this myself, and you have to ride these things out for many years. It's like, they're like, well, I just want to get it off the ground, then we'll figure it out. Well, it's really hard to change things in midstream when you have investors and legal documents and everything else. Really figure it out now is I don't think it's going to change an investor's perception about whether their choice to invest with you or not is based on how much you're going to make. You can't be out of market, but you also don't want to be so lean that you're going to be broke halfway.
Well, yeah, exactly. Let me make the argument that I need you to do well.
Exactly.
If you're not doing well, you're going to lose interest. If you're not doing well, how do I know you're going to stick through it? If you're not doing well, how do I know you're still going to have the same passion for it 8 years from now when I need to get paid as the investor? So I need you to do well.
Yeah.
And you see it all the time in terms of, it's such a good point. The slowing down, the setup, the economic model that you built your business on. I'm in the real estate space. I talk to real estate, brokerage owners, team leaders, and sometimes you'll look at their financial model, and based on the way that they are structuring their financials with their agents, it's like, oh man, the more successful you are, the more pain you're going to be in. Hopefully you're not very good at this, so this will end soon. Because if you're good at it, you're going to not make money for a long time. And not because you're not good at the real estate part of it, but because you didn't structure the deal. I mean, you just didn't structure it in a way in which you could win.
And it's funny,
you literally rigged the rules against yourself, right?
You do. And it's funny you say that. Like now when I look, because obviously lots of people, most of my investments are in my own business. So there'll be a time we'll have more liquidity, can invest more. But I do invest obviously with friends and family, and there's stuff. People help me along the way. So I try to pay it forward. But the thing I look for the most is not what my returns are going to be. Are they taking enough to make sure they're going to be successful? And someone did that to me when he said, "Hey, see, I'm looking at this whole thing. By the way, I'm going to invest into this thing, but are you going to be okay? Because this doesn't look like you're making a lot of money on this." I'm like, "Oh, it'll be fine. Once we get to a certain size, it's going to be great." So now I'm encouraging, I tell people, before you finalize your PPM, let me have a look at it. Let me just like challenge you to think that you're making enough money, because I've been down the road of not, and I don't think it's, again, it doesn't change an investor's decision. If the returns are there, they'll invest. If you're cutting, way too big a check to yourself, and we've seen that as well in many PPMs. Oh, I can pay myself, I can pay my child, and I can pay my wife, and all these things. There is the other side of it where there are people out there that take too much from a fund, and you can identify that as well. But it's people the opposite that are early stage and they don't know how to fee structure accordingly.
So what business ended up benefiting from these, from these learning lessons that you took on? Because you've done well, you've grown, you've got a great life going, all that, successful. So if that business wasn't making money,
yeah,
what business had the benefit of everything you learned?
So the two new businesses we're in. So the biggest swing for us was, if I was staying in that first parallel, so the idea of this vacation, club model.
So that's Luxus, correct? That we just discussed?
Oh, yeah, exactly. So called Luxus Vacation Property. So that particular brand under the Luxus Group family. We said, okay, we know we can't make money in this, but we have this great learning. And what are we good at? We're good at picking homes, managing homes, delivering a great experience. We have a great concierge team that plans all of our clients' vacations. And we have this great skill set. But we are limited on what we can make, because it's like a fee structure based on size, almost like a fund manager. And instead, what if we shifted to the rental game, which happy to talk about, that whole industry. But if I were to give my macro level view, it's going to be a tough industry unless you can identify a niche and own that niche, whether it's in your micro market, your state market, or your national market, or whatever it might be. I do think niche-driven short-term rentals are going to have very higher degree of success versus the 6 million options at Airbnb, where you're going to see, compliance issues, declining markets, and
as long as you don't do what I did, like, hey, I'll just buy a home in Scottsdale. That'll be good.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
I would.
So if you were to come to Scottsdale, you're going to come to me, and you'd say, "Hey, Steve, I want to buy a home in Scottsdale, and I like your advice." I'd say, "Okay, what are you looking for? Returns." You get some lifestyle component. And our model, our niche we've chosen, is connecting the certainty with vacation rentals. So we're effectively the first branded vacation rental company. I'm waiting for someone else to tell me there's another one. I haven't found one, but it is truly like JW Marriott meets Airbnb, where you've got an unlimited amount of properties we can grow to, but we have the same linens and the same wine glasses and the same turkey baster and the same electronics in every home you go to. So if you go to our Scottsdale home, or you go to our Maui home, or Cabo, or Italy, or wherever, you know what sleep you're going to get. Your wife knows how the bathroom's set up and what salon grade hair dryers are going to be there. You know what type of, you can cook a Thanksgiving meal for your whole family of 14. So the niche we've chosen is to say, forget about the whole space. There's going to be rentals forever. Everyone's going to rent properties forever. There's no question. Macro level, probably some pain, at least for probably 2 or 3 more years, I think. But in a niche-driven approach, I want to attract the families that want certainty within them. And so we're building a platform that people can come to us and say, I don't want to stay in a hotel. I don't want to spend $4,000 a night for 2 hotel rooms side by side for me and my kids. I'll spend $1,000 a night with Luxus Vacation Properties or LuxusVP.com, and I can get the same experience no matter where I go. Now, it's not different size homes, different artwork, different furniture packages, but I know that the 4 pillars of my stay, which is your sleep, your bathroom, your kitchen, and your electronics, are all going to be similar, or the same rather. And that's the niche that we've chosen to kind of stake our claim on. And now we're working very diligently. We want to grow it to 500 properties in the next 5 years and have this portfolio around the world that is pretty special, that people can rely on for that consistency that doesn't exist with Airbnb and Vrbo right now.
Amazing. So, why don't you just go ahead, plug, people listening are going to want to check that out. Why don't you just plug the URL
for sure,
where they can see you?
Appreciate it. So LuxusVP.com. So LUXUS, I mentioned earlier, Lux is Latin word for luxury. VP is in vacationproperties.com. We've got 16 properties now. We expect to be growing about a property a week in 2025. So probably be about somewhere between 60 and 80 by end of this year. And it'll be growing at a pretty good clip going forward. So if you like good vacations, all I ask is go to that first to see if we have a property that fits your needs before you go to Airbnb and check it out.
So when you're talking about a niche purchase, that will do well. Let's just jump in there to understand it, because we have a lot of people listening that are interested in the short-term rental world. Hell,
yeah,
I'm interested in theory in having all my investments be short-term rentals because, well, I get to enjoy them, even if I get a little shorter return. But I just had, and maybe I am like so many other people, I just had this terrible experience of thinking, oh, well, what's a hot, vacation rental market that I like? Scottsdale. Cool. Send me some listings in Scottsdale. Oh, I like this one. Great. I'll buy it.
Yeah.
And then I'm losing $5,000-$6,000 a month. And thankfully I'm about to close escrow on the sale of it and get rid of it.
Okay. I could have taken over for you if you still had it.
So it was, but listen, it was a good part of town. It was a nice property. It was, every time I stayed there, I enjoyed it. So what went wrong? And what does it mean? Like, how did I not niche, right? Like, let's just unwrap that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So niches are lots of different ways. I've got friends in Las Vegas that run, and they have these really cool homes, and they have it's like art, and it's eclectic, and it's very cool. People go to them for this like really kind of unique experience, and they're getting this following of people that say, I want that type of like really cool, fun, hyper fun experience. And in some cases, it's like I own the niche of I have 50 properties in LA, and all I do is coastal Southern California. That's all I do. So people, when they go there, they rank at the top of Google. They rank it. So there's lots of different ways the niche can be kind of derived to say. So when you have your particular home, that's generally how people do it. Exactly how you bought it is how 99.9% of people choose their short-term rental home. So if you were looking like a return-driven approach, Scottsdale in Arizona is a hard market because it's got almost unlimited vacation rentals. It's state governed. Municipalities have some power. So there's just a lot of inventory in that market. And as a result of that, it's hard to compete. So then you have to find what's different about my particular home and how's it marketed differently. Two ways to do it. You set up your home really cool and you spend a whole bunch of money on the website and do you kind of the DIY, do it yourself. Or you find a company like us or another version that provides a differentiated experience. And then ideally what that does, it drives off of itself because now you don't need to find your home in VRBO. They're going to find it through Luxus VP because they just stayed in Maui and now they want to stay in Scottsdale. They're not going to look anywhere else but what our portfolio of Scottsdale homes. So it's not necessarily an easy thing just to fix. It comes down to, are you managing yourself or are you having someone else manage it? If you're managing yourself, how's your home stand out? And there's like algorithms galore. There's a million things people can do. Like we hire outsourced companies that's their sole job is how to hack the algorithms on Airbnb or Vrbo to make sure you get better rankings. It's how the word placements, the photo placements, there's so many different things. So the do-it-yourselfers really have very little chance, to be perfectly honest, of competing like at a higher level.
Well, I'm on your website and I see why I've got my ass kicked. I mean, you have a property in Scottsdale, you have free breakfast daily, housekeeping, Troon Golf, hike. They didn't get any of that stuff with me.
Yeah, it's for sure. And we picked a specific resort in Scottsdale that provides all these services and they're great. And we'll have other Scottsdale homes that'll be like a golf retreat, perfect with 4 master bedrooms for 4 couples or 4 guys that's designed around the golf. And then we'll use the channels to market towards golfers for that to fill that up. Or we'll have multiple units in a row where we market to corporate retreats. So this is where the property management company has to be diversified. Just to clarify, most property management companies or rental management companies, all they do is they take their listings and put an Airbnb and VRBO. So you're competing with the other 6 million listings out there.
So your properties are not in those portals?
No, so are we?
Your properties are not posted to an Airbnb.
No, we still host. Yeah, absolutely. So we just get the numbers vary, but between 40 to 50% of direct booking traffic that comes through Luxus VP because of the following we have, and we expect that to grow. But we still rely on the OTAs, online travel agencies such as Airbnb and Vrbo make up 90% of the market because we want traffic coming into our home, and it says Luxus everywhere. And by the time they leave, they know for certain they're in a Luxus home and they book with us directly the next time. So you still want the channel and the horsepower that comes with those two platforms because they're impossible to beat and no one will ever become what they have become again. But we don't have to rely on them exclusively like most property management companies to bring 100% of their traffic because we have this direct booking and loyalty program and we perks and rewards and discounts and things that we've applied that once you start traveling Luxus once, you're probably always going to look to a Luxus property first unless we can't fulfill your specific vacation or your specific time thought. So that's where and that's really, really hard. Like in Europe, for example, where there's a lot of legacy companies, it's at 80-20 in a lot of these guys, 80% direct bookings, 20% Airbnb. In North America, it's more like 90-10. 10% direct bookings, 90% Airbnb. So if you want to compete differently, you get to bring more traffic to you directly. And it's expensive and hard to create that because you have to have something special about you. We have our special secret sauce with that certain team. We've got, lots of different, spots around the world, and then we're going to be growing very quickly. So that's the niche that we decided to stake our claim on.
Love it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So it's crazy. Ask again in 5 years. We'll do podcasts in 5 years to see how well it did. But it's we're on the right track.
So, and I want to just ask you a couple of things I love to ask. How do you? I'm curious to see how you approach this, just because I think you're a very thoughtful person. I love to know how entrepreneurs like yourself, who see opportunities every day, you imagine opportunities, you're presented opportunities, you're pitched. So how do you differentiate between opportunity worth pursuing and distraction?
It's a great question. Yeah. So I was the ultimate distracting guy for pretty much from 2010 till COVID hit, 2020. It was, I wouldn't say I chased everything, but I chased a lot of things. I bought a fishing lodge in Northern Canada. I had this restaurant. I started another kind of corporate, this other retreat business thing. Lifestyle, we're doing like going trips to the Grammys and the Masters. Like I did all these things, and I realized I wasn't doing anything very well anymore. And unfortunately, you start something, you need to see it through. So it's not like you can just like close up shop. But sometimes the quicker you close up shop is the quicker you can actually like reevaluate. When COVID hit, was as hard as it was, and it put our company in the edge for about a year about whether or not we were going to make it or not. And despite we were debt free on the portfolio, but we also had the development projects had some stress and everything else. Me and my team and my business partner now, one on our Four Seasons, our developments division, we just refined and really narrowed down to two things: that side of the business I just talked about, and the development side, and they're completely separate. And I, as the founder, I agreed, and not hesitantly, because I was in so much pain at the time. I'm like, I feel like it was like 17 years of learning to bring me to this point to do one or two things extremely well. And sometimes not sometimes, I think you have to go through the pain to know that. And now I'm Dr. No. I say no to everything now. Like it doesn't even cross my mind anymore as excitement. I just turned out a incredible development opportunity. I'm sure it's going to make all kinds of money because it does not fit in the core anymore. Before I would have like underwrote it, spend 100 hours looking at it and flying and checking it out and talking myself into it. And now it's just no. And it's a hard journey as an entrepreneur to start saying no because you don't know what it is. And I use this analogy, so let me approach it this way too. A lot of people use like, look at Apple. They do one thing very, very well, and that's why they're so successful. Look at their first 30 years. They did hundreds of things that failed over that particular time period to create the one thing, to create the iPod and then the iPhone and the iPad. So I do think you as an entrepreneur have to go through throwing some things at the wall to see what sticks, find out what you're really good at, what the niche looks like. But to really pick the one thing on day one and expect that to be the thing is so unlikely. It's likely you got to go through 5, 6, 7 iterations of failures to find out what the thing is. And it's hard to say that. You don't want to like talk to your investors, I'm probably going to fail you on this project because it's my first one. But statistics would show you're probably not going to do as well because that's going to be a learning experience. And so that's where now I look at it to say that 15, 17 years for me was learning to create 2 really good businesses that we're going all in on the next 5 years. And where I do believe we're going to be very successful. We have a lot of work, a lot of, there's going to be all the ebbs and flows and tough parts of business, but we're hyper-focused now. And I can say no to anything pretty quickly.
We would tend to fall in this trap of calling everything the biggest thing or the number one thing. And but it's certainly up there among the biggest, among the number ones, the multiple number one things that get into really, really bright, strong entrepreneurs' way that, brilliant people, brilliant ideas, but this particular superpower of focus.
Yes.
Of
well said.
Understanding. See, here's the thing. I asked you how you differentiate between opportunity and a distraction.
Uh-huh.
And the thing is that what's a distraction to you is the absolute right opportunity for someone else.
Totally.
So the opportunities are distractions and the distractions are opportunities. Are you self-aware enough to understand how those fall in line for you, and not just you, but you right now in this moment, in this part of the evolution of your business, and you're just it's gonna be exciting to watch. Like you said, we will check in with you. Well, hopefully a lot
Appreciate it.
sooner than 5 years. Go check out. I mean, shit, I'm already on here, and there's just some amazing property, amazing locations. My favorite places in the world, by the way, are out here. So that's Luxus, Luxus, Luxus VP, like vacationproperties.com. Go check that out. And man, thank you for having joined us here, Masters of Business podcast, and looking forward to connecting with you hopefully soon.